Hello, good evening, welcome to Upfront. My name is Raymond Akwa. Tonight we're unpacking the case against the former Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. Kisel Atuforsin. We know that from yesterday, the man pleaded not guilty. He's been granted some 3 million self-recognizant bail. Much of the detail is what is the crux of our engagement today on Upfront. After this break, we'll commence our engagement with one man who sat through it, who has been very active in communication for the Member of Parliament. Perhaps we can actually continue the conversation right away, if it is okay with you. Honorable former Deputy Minister, Felix Ofosukwache was in the, it was information that became Communications Ministry, in the Communications Ministry. I hope you are doing well today.
Oh, I'm doing great, by the grace of God.
Yes. You have not been prosecuted yet.
Well, I have not.
Okay, now I was about to say that, but you were in court yesterday, right?
Yes, I was.
Yes. I want you to bring us up to speed to what really happened in court. We understand the basics were done. First, there was a plea taken, then there was a bail bond discussion, which actually went through finally. Beyond that, what happened in court?
Well, as you indicated, the accused persons, let me add, falsely accused persons, were formally charged with what we know to be very frivolous charges by the Attorney General. So the Attorney General read out the charges. They were then admitted to bail. The judge read out the bail conditions, which they all met, and therefore were bailed. Beyond that, little of significance, nothing of significance happened, except a very bizarre incident, which convinced me beyond doubt that this, our Attorney General, clearly is not on top of his brief. He did not appear to have a grasp of the very things that he had taken to court. He didn't seem to have paid attention to detail. Whereas his own charge sheet was making the claim that the government that I was a part of paid for the first 30 ambulances directly to Big C Limited, which is a Dubai-based ambulance conversion outfit. The Attorney General stood up in court and claimed that the money was paid through Japa Art Business, who are the local partners of Big C. That is not the case. Even his own charge sheet does not say so. So he took the lawyer of the second accused to correct him. It convinced me beyond doubt then that what we have feared is actually the case, that these are trammed up charges. They have not been thorough, they have not been diligent, they don't know what they are talking about. And they have been compelled to do this as part of a grand scheme to intimidate NDC operatives, especially MPs, who have kicked against the obnoxious e-levy. Indeed, it might interest viewers to note that since November 26th, when the very bad 2022 budget statement was thrown out, not less than half a dozen NDC MPs have been arraigned before all manner of investigative committees, some of whom have been charged on very, very frivolous premise.
Members of Parliament.
Members of Parliament. Indeed, only
up to 12.
Half a dozen, about
okay,
six.
Yeah, six of them, yeah.
Yes, on very, very frivolous charges. A day or two before, we all woke up to the bizarre spectacle where suddenly, after a year, the government has realized that 4 military personnel attached to the speaker for personal protection were not properly deployed. 1 whole year after the fact. It is as if the speaker went to put a gun to the heads of the soldiers and asked them to come and guard him. So these are tricks that we know of. We do know
but there's been explanation to that from the Ministry of
National
Security.
You see, the timing
from the
of
military high command.
No,
they said the letter was leaked. They said that
Raymond,
it was not in tandem with established procedure. Those things have been explained as justification.
The military is a highly regimented institution.
Yeah,
it is not possible for any soldier on his own volition to get up and go and offer protection services for a high-profile personality like the speaker. Those soldiers were deployed with express authorization from their superiors. If the military high command and government are saying that it was done without due process, then this is the most hopelessly incompetent institution I have ever seen. This has been done deliberately with a view to embarrassing the speaker and intimidating him for what they believe or perceive to be his role in the rejection of the very bad budget statements and the obnoxious e-levy. But back to the persecution.
Before we even actually go to that, you did mention, and for the record, you did mention that about 6 MPs. Who are these MPs?
Well,
beyond
Even the former Deputy Attorney General, Honorable Dominic Ayini, he is being investigated over the Zwarungu market. I mean,
there's a market.
Bizarre and inexplicable.
Okay.
The minority leader himself, Honorable John Jinapo, our MP for Akwetia, Honorable Atuforsin himself, and a host of others that I could go on and on with. But these are deliberate ploys. You see, the Attorney General, unfortunately, has turned himself into a hatchet man for President Akufo-Addo and has decided...
An allegation that has been denied.
Well, of course, you don't expect him to admit it. President Akufo-Addo will not hold a press conference and say that he is witch-hunting the NDC MP. So if you expect a formal statement from him, you will never get it. But we have been around long enough to know when the government is desperate and tries these tricks. In the MPP's previous guys, they did it. Okay. It did not result in them staying in power forever. They were thrown out in 2008. President Akufo-Addo has become desperate. He cannot see his way clear with the governance of this country. He's engaged in terrible maladministration. There's corruption. Our economy is on the verge of collapse, as key financial institutions and experts have indicated. He is supervising nepotism on a scale never seen before. So nothing is working in this country.
The argument is that none of this should prevent anybody from accounting.
So how is it that
how
is it that when it comes to accounting, President Akufo-Addo does not hold any member of his government to account? Ajima Menu has been indicted by a parliamentary committee. If crime knows no name, if
the law is no respect of persons,
why is the law respecting Ajima Menu? Why is it that the criminals who fabricated the story around people who were not journalists and took them to Australia as journalists, who engaged in visa fraud, are being respected by the law? How is it that A.B. Ejenimeji, the former PPA boss, who was caught on tape, engaged in acts bordering on criminality, why is the law respecting him? Why is the law respecting the Boss Movimpina scandal perpetrators? Why is the law respecting the NYA former director and his deputies who breached our procurement laws with impunity? Why is the law respecting the perpetrators of the fraud? And this was stated by the finance minister himself and the energy minister then, Peter Mewu. Why is it that those who engage in that fraud are being shielded? Why has President Akufo-Addo not prosecuted Boachie Jakun for the financial loss he caused in the matter of GPGC? So President Akufo-Addo has never been interested in fighting corruption. He has never believed in the rule of law. Why? Even terrorists in his party who engaged in the acts of terror at Iowa West are working free, despite a clear indication by the Emil Short Committee that they should be prosecuted. So the president has never been interested in fighting corruption. Indeed, yesterday, the Attorney General put out some flyers, which his propagandists shared around, containing a lot of falsehoods. One of the claims he made is that his outfit exists to ensure that corruption and losses are not incurred by the state.
Yeah.
Yet, he has not acted on any of these matters that I have spoken about. So this has nothing to do with fighting corruption or upholding the rule of law. It has any and everything to do with intimidating the opposition so that the president can have his way. But we have a message for the president. Look, we are not about to become plant accomplices in his maladministration and misrule. We will not be intimidated by this. He can arrest as many NDC MPs and prominent personalities as he wants. Nobody will stop opposing him to the hilt like we've done all these years. So we are not going to become tame accomplices in this maladministration because of this crude and cruel acts of intimidation. So we are prepared to hold the feet of this government to the fire of accountability, and no amount of persecution will change that.
I want, however, to drill down to the very case before court. And documents filed by the AG's office traces the events culminating into the claims they are making from a 2009 announcement during the State of the Nation's address of plans to procure ambulances for the country. The AG says that following that address, the Ministry of Health initiated action to acquire more ambulances. The understanding it also gave was that the third accused, Richard Jakpa, is said to have used his company, Jakpa Business, to present a proposal and term loan to the Health Ministry, which he claimed to have arranged from Stanbic Bank to finance the supply of the 200 ambulances to the government. According to the AG, Cabinet endorsed that executive approval for the project. And here, Mr. Forson is being accused of not only engaging in issuing letters of credit and acting without authority from relevant institutions and authority, and going ahead to make the nation, the Republic of Ghana, incur losses And that is the crux of the issue against him, causing financial loss to the state. Now, this ambulance conversation is at the core of it.
Sure.
Without that, there's no case before court in the first place.
Sure.
What government believes is that the actions of the people involved led to the loss because the ambulance were not fit for purpose. As of the time, in fact, the reliance is on a former health minister's letter, which in 2016 suggested that the ambulance were not ambulances that actually lived up to the standard that we wanted them to be. And so we could not accept them. Legitimate?
Very illegitimate. To begin with, as of 6th January 2017, when the Mahama administration was leaving office, not a dollar had been lost to the state in respect of this transaction. Indeed, this whole...
How do you mean?
Yes, I will explain. This whole persecution is premised on a gratuitous lie and falsehood championed by Godfrey Dame and his horde of NPP propagandists that the Mahama administration brought in empty trotro buses and passed them off as ambulances.
Okay.
Let me use this opportunity to state emphatically that that is an infantile lie. The ambulances that came in were not empty. They were fitted with some equipment. Now, let me indicate that ambulances are not off-the-shelf items that you go and pick. Indeed, there's no company that manufactures ambulances from scratch. What happens is that the various car manufacturing companies manufacture base vehicles, which are then converted by installing equipment and accessories in them. Let me give you an example. You see the president's unending convoy. At the tail end of it is a Land Cruiser that is painted white with a red cross, on which is written an ambulance. That is a Toyota Land Cruiser V8. Toyota did not manufacture the ambulance. The president's government bought it, gave it to an entity to convert into an ambulance. The recent ambulances that Howard Kumsin has been making a song and a dance out of are Mercedes Sprinter buses. Mercedes-Benz did not manufacture the ambulance. They manufactured the Sprinter-based vehicle. Indeed, anybody who sees one of those ambulances passing should look at the back. Sprinter is embossed there clearly. They then got a company to convert it by installing medical equipment, and that is how it becomes an ambulance. This whole transaction stems from an agreement that the government of Ghana entered into with Big C General Trading LLC.
So that's the question I'm coming to.
Yes.
What did we agree to procure?
That is an important question. Before I go to that, in order to put to rest this mischief and lie about empty ambulances, I have sent some pictures to your producers. I hope that they put it on your screen. It shows the insides of the ambulance. They are not empty. Again, I am throwing a direct challenge to President Akufo-Addo and his hatchet man, Godfrey Dame, that if they know they are not lying about these ambulances, they should permit you at Joy FM. They should give you access to the ambulances and they open them up. They are the Air Force base. This is the current state. It's gathering dust and rotting away. They should open up these ambulances for you to film with your camera and show to the people of Ghana to see whether they are empty. They are not empty. The agreement we entered into said in their annexes, there are annexes A, B, and C, that Big C will purchase Mercedes-Benz Sprinter 309 buses, convert them by installing fixtures, some of which are permanent, some of which are temporary, which means that you could remove them. 309 Mercedes Sprinter buses. That is what we bargained for. These buses that they brought were actually a higher spec Mercedes-Benz 311, much higher in specification than what we ordered for, at no extra cost to us. They converted it into an ambulance by installing permanent fixtures. And then they shipped a container load of medical equipment and accessories, including what we call defibrillators. That equipment that is used to resuscitate people who suffer cardiac arrest. Those equipments are sitting in a 20-foot container, which has been at our port for 5 years and has not been cleared by this government.
Why?
Because they want the buses to rot away. The equipment to rot away so they can engage in this dubious propaganda that we brought in buses that were not fit for purpose. So that is precisely what they are. Let them take up my challenge and open it up for the people of Ghana to see. Let them clear the goods at the port and open them up and allow Big C to come in with their team and install them and hand it over to them and see whether they are not of a higher specification than what our Kumsin brought us recently. You see, I'm a bit disappointed in the media, Raymond. And let me criticize you a bit. I think that you must go beyond just reporting what the parties in the matter say. Dig deep. Ask for the relevant documentation. And then you will find that Akufo-Addo and Gofendami, his sachet man, have been on a lying spree. Now, what are the facts here? They say that this was done without authorization.
Yeah.
This is the agreement. Before this agreement was signed, the AG's opinion, and the AG at the time was Martin Amidu. I have it here. His opinion is dated 20th October 2011. This, before it went to Parliament, received cabinet approval. This is a memorandum signed on 7 December 2011. This is a cabinet approval stamped confidential, signed by Ben C. Egan, Secretary to Cabinet. This here is a parliamentary memo taken to Parliament by Dr. Kwabena Duffuor and Honorable Abambagun, who was Health Minister. This is a parliamentary approval communicated to government. This here is a PPA approval sought for the transaction. Now, once this was done, the agreement was then signed. You see, Raymond, every transaction, every agreement defines the terms of engagement. This agreement said that 120 days after it is signed, that is 4 months after it is signed, Big C must dispatch the ambulances in batches of 25. So after this was signed, this agreement was signed in December 2012, 19 December 2012, a few weeks before the elapsation of the Mills government. At the time, he had passed on, unfortunately, so President Mahama had replaced him. Now, once that was signed and there was a changeover, Big C wrote in July of 2013, notifying us that in compliance with the provisions of this agreement, they had converted 20 of the ambulances, and therefore they were ready for inspection, and were reminding us that per the provisions in the agreement, it was time to establish the letters of credit so that they could ship the ambulances. The then Minister of Health, Madam Sherry Aite, then wrote back and said, oh, she had just recently taken office. And so this is the first time she was hearing of this, and that she should be given time to consult relevant authorities and personalities within his ministry. That was done. She actually implored Big C to hold on to further production, pending the resolution of the confusion in their mind, because she was new at this. Big C wrote back and said that no, after we signed the agreement with you, because of the strict provisions in there, we have already imported 200 Mercedes 311 Sprinter buses. Even though we said we will give you 309, we are giving you a higher specification at our own cost. And therefore, it will be impossible for us to hold on to conversion, because it will cause loss that will be irreparable to us. Based on this, the Minister of Health then contacted the Ministry of Health, who then also got in touch with the Attorney General. I have heard some MPP propagandists claim that this was done without the express authorization of the Attorney General. That is blatantly false. On the 9th of May 2014, the Attorney General, represented by Honorable Dr. Dominic Akuritinga Ajini, wrote his opinion, which was express. Indeed, they indicate clearly that they had even been contacted by Big C, who were insisting that we should respect the provisions of the contract, lest they will be compelled to take legal action, because they think that there is a bit of delay. The Attorney General said that he had reviewed the agreement, and therefore it will be difficult for us to sustain any case against Big C if they ever sue us. And therefore, the relevant authorities, being the Health Ministry and the Finance Ministry, should take steps to execute the provisions of the contract. The Health Ministry was a bit skeptical about this, so they wrote back to the Attorney General seeking clarification. The Attorney General was express in his opinion, and I'll read it to you. Furthermore, we wish to point out that as a matter of law, ministries, departments, agencies, and statutory corporations are bound by the opinion of the Attorney General on questions of law. Your letter under reference purports to express a legal viewpoint contrary to that of the Attorney General. In any court action on this matter, please be advised that it is the viewpoint of the Attorney General that would prevail. In the circumstance, please be advised and proceed to take steps to execute the contract in order to avoid financial liability to government.
And this is the part where in 120 days, there were specific responsibilities on both parties.
On both parties.
Yeah.
Big C had met their obligation, and therefore it was important for us to meet our obligation. Around this time, you see, government had placed a moratorium on further borrowing because our debt was rising. And you know the difficulties we had at that time, 2014, 2015.
That's true.
And the IMF coming in and all that. So a decision was taken that no new loans would be taken.
Which would affect the
Stanbic loan.
Okay.
So there was a back and forth, which even compelled Stanbic itself to withdraw the loan.
Okay.
So the loan was no longer available. It did not mean...
So a source of financing for the
that is the loan. You see, yes. The loan is only one option for financing. Every year, the Ministry of Health is giving money for goods and services and capital expenditure. You can either capture the ambulances under...
The allocations to the ministry.
The allocations to the ministry. You can either capture it under the goods and services budget or the capital expenditure budget, depending on what definition you give it. Yeah. So the Ministry of Finance decided that because the Stanbic loan was no longer available, they were going to take steps to pay out of the ministry's allocation. I've heard the Attorney General also claim that there is misapplication of funds. You use the Ministry of Health's funds to procure ambulances, which is a health equipment, and you say that it is being misapplied.
Which is something they wanted in the first place.
And we have never stopped buying ambulances. This year, in the 2022 budget, this government has programmed to buy 100 ambulances for $18 million.
Okay.
Indeed, the ambulances that Howard Kumsin brought cost $105,000 a piece. The ambulances that we were procuring cost 79,000 euros, even though they were of a higher specification than what Howard Kumsin has brought. So the ministry then gave authorization for the deputy minister to write to establish letters of credit. You see, letters of credit is not payment. It is only a guarantee that says that if you honor your obligation, this money is available for you to draw down on in terms of the cost that you incur in doing that.
At the core of this is also the claim that he was never authorized.
But that is not true. The charge sheet that Mr. Forson, that the Attorney General's office put out on 23rd December 2021 is signed by Yvonne Atakra Obobisa, Director of Public Prosecutions, for Attorney General. What is the implication of this?
That the Attorney General actually did sign it, and that it is his document.
The letter signed on the 7th August 2014 requesting for the establishment of letters of credit. Signed Honorable Kasiao A. Forson, MP, Deputy Minister, for Finance Minister, copied Honorable Minister, Ministry of Health, copied Minister of Finance. What is the implication of this?
So the Deputy Minister signed for the substantive minister.
So when the Attorney General goes to court and says there was no authorization, exactly what authorization is he talking about?
But is it possible that the substantive minister come out to say that no, I didn't allow this to happen?
Have you heard Honorable Secretary say this?
No.
He was copied in this letter. That means that it went into his tree.
Yeah.
If ever he had any doubt, he will stop it.
Of course, I mean, he can
indicate
clearly.
So have you heard the finance minister say that he did not authorize this? So sometimes a lot of lies are peddled, and the Attorney General does not appear to be patient enough to review all the documents. Now, I'm beginning to wonder whether he has seen all the documentation, because what happened in court yesterday gave me an impression that he was not on top of this brief. Okay. That because there's some mischief afoot, they've not even taken their time. Indeed, you know that they issued a statement in response to Honorable Atufosen's contention that this is a witch hunt, in which they claimed that Honorable Atufosen co-signed the cabinet memo in 2011.
The 5th of January statement.
Yes. Meanwhile, Honorable Atufosen became deputy minister in 2013. In fact, we were sworn in as deputy ministers at the same time, on the same day, myself, Honorable Atufosen, and the rest. Yet, they said that he signed a document in 2011 when he was not a minister. So there's a lack of thoroughness on the part of the Attorney General. Now, let me come.
Give me a second.
Sure.
I will take a break. When I return from this particular break, we'll continue with unpacking what's been happening around this particular ambulance, abandoning the current state of it, and appreciate the issues perhaps in court from a proper perspective. After this break. My guest today is a former Deputy Minister for Communications. The crux of our engagement is to do with that particular ambulance saga, the one that was actually purchased during the time of former President John Dramani Mahama, which is at the core of the engagements that have actually sent people to court and is being disputed over the period. Now, I am coming back in studio because you're welcome back.
Thank you.
The we left off getting to know what's been happening from your side.
Sure.
Now, from your side, there has been some very important issues coming up about a former health minister's letters and correspondence. These correspondence, the argument suggests, are being clearly indicating that we didn't have the right kind of ambulance. Indeed, they were, right from the beginning, terrible buses, or whichever one you want to call them, which were procured, which breached the standards. And that is why we are where we are today. So if the NDC even admitted that the ambulance is terrible, why are you contesting these claims?
Well, the NDC did not admit that the ambulances are terrible.
Yeah.
Again, it will help greatly if you're able to show your viewers the pictures that I sent you of the insides of the ambulance. Mm-hmm. I told you initially that this whole thing involves three parts. The purchase of a base vehicle, a Mercedes-Benz 311 Sprinter bus. 2, the installation of permanent fixtures. And then the installation of equipment and accessories. The installation of the permanent fixtures has been done, and that is what was brought. The equipment and accessories are lying at the port. They are removable. They can be fixed at any time. Big C has undertaken to bring down their technicians to do this fixing and then hand it over properly, formally, to the Ministry of Health. That would then mean that they have fulfilled the first part of the obligation, pending the execution of the remainder. Now, there is talk about a letter that Honorable Alessegbefia wrote in August 2015. Significantly enough, the Attorney General's office has mischievously leaked this letter, on its own, to create the impression that this is the last letter that was written in this case.
But there's no evidence to suggest that this has been leaked by the Attorney General's office.
But I heard some of your colleagues in the media. And where would that have come from? I have no doubt.
Media people intercept letters all the time.
So I have an idea where they intercepted it from.
Yes.
And the purpose for which it was done. Mm-hmm. First of all, there has been talk about the quality of the ambulance, which I would address. Mm-hmm. Honorable Alessegbefia wrote this letter on the 10th of August 2015 for 2 reasons, and he states them in the letter. The first one was that he was calling for suspension of further payment because after the 30, there were 170 others that needed to be brought in. The reason for that was that Big C had a dispute with their local partners called Jakpa at Business. Jakpa at Business had gone to court upon hearing that the first letters of credit had been established in Big C's name. So they went to court against Big C, saying that they had an agreement that says that all monies would be paid through them to Big C, but Big C had taken payment directly. They got a judgment in their favor. It was at the time that this dispute was going on that Honorable Alessegbefia wrote this letter, saying that we needed to wait for the outcome so that we know whether we pay to Big C or we pay to Jakpa at Business. He also contended that the ambulances that were brought in, the 30 that the ministry had inspected, did not meet specification. Now, that in itself is not fatal. That was based on some technical audit done by Silver Star Auto Limited. You see, technically speaking, Silver Star are Big C's competitors. So if you go and call my competitor to come and assess vehicles that I have brought, I don't think that the process is fair. This was raised by Big C. They raised a number of issues. You see, Iyoko, as part of the investigation into this matter in 2017, asked officials of their transport department to also inspect the buses as they were parked at the Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a report of that inspection done and signed by FDO 3 Williams Frimpong Manso. Body. All the 30 vehicles are sprayed in ambulance colors. There are no dents nor scratches on the ambulances. Side mirrors are intact. Lights. All the headlights and tail lights of the ambulances are intact, and none have cracks in them. Ambulances' lights are present both inside and outside of the vehicle. Tires. All the tires under the ambulances are in good state, and none is deflated. Wheel nuts to all the tires are intact. Inside, all seats in the ambulances are in good condition. Dashboards of the ambulances are neat and in good condition. Siren is present, but the sound is not loud as expected. This is a minor issue that can be corrected. Engine. The performance of the engine is very good. 3 of the ambulances were sparked to check the performance. Ambulance compartments. automated external defibrillator is not present in all the ambulances. Now, I've told you that they are in the container at the port. They are equipment that you can remove and install. And then they said the equipment is not fully and well built because not all of them had been installed. They are in a container at the port and has been there since the last quarter of 2016. So that's over 5 to 6 years now. Now, when Honorable Alex Ebefia raised this, and indeed the Attorney General himself raises it in the charge sheet, there was a back and forth between the ministry and Big C. At some point, the ministry sent a delegation led by the National Ambulance Service to Dubai to inspect the ambulances that were being converted. They raised issues. Big C committed to address the problem. They said that they had shipped the equipment and accessories, and therefore they will bring their team to do the installation and then hand over formally to the ministry so that they fulfill that part of the obligation. Based on this, on 14 December 2016, Honorable Alex Ebefia wrote another letter. Supply of 200 Mercedes-Benz ambulances and related services. We write to request for the establishment of an irrevocable and transferable letter of credit for the rest of the 170 ambulances out of the initial 200 ambulances ordered by the Ministry of Health. 30 of the ambulances with all their accessories have already been supplied to the ministry. So if indeed at the time we were leaving office we had any problem with the ambulances, Honorable Asegefia would not write this letter. This was 1 whole year after his initial letter because engagements are taking place between the government of Ghana and Big C to rectify the problems that were realized. Now, when we left power shortly, about 3 weeks after this letter was written. When we left power, Big C did not hear from this government again. Governance is a continuum. Even though 2 different parties had changed hands in terms of government, Big C was dealing with the government of Ghana and not party. So after some time, they wrote to this government. On 25th April 2018, they wrote to the Minister for Health, Honorable Kweku Ajimamenu, recounted the chronology of events up to that point, and said that they had waited for far too long. They had converted 30, brought them, shipped accessories. They have not heard from us. There are 170 more that they are converting. They bought this at a certain cost, and therefore they are losing money. So because of that, they were invoking clause 11.1 of the agreement. Now, I told you that this whole relationship is defined or governed by the clause contained in the agreement. This agreement, in my view, is so lopsided in favor of Ghana that even the jurisdiction for settling disputes is Ghana, which is not the case in many of them. Now, the clause says that all disputes arising in connection with this contract or the execution thereof shall be amicably settled through negotiations between the 2 parties. So what had happened was a dispute between the government of Ghana and Big C. They have brought the equipment. Government of Ghana is claiming that it is not up to the specification they ordered. So you negotiate, you engage them like Honorable Alex Ebefia did to rectify it. They had made a commitment, were ready, they were not hearing from us, so they were invoking this clause. Indeed, after this letter, on the 13th of July 2018, officials of Big C met Honorable Ajimamenu, his 2 deputies, and other officials of the Ministry of Health, including the head of the National Ambulance Service.
Okay.
When they finished, they discussed these matters. They agreed on what to do. I told you already that Big C disputed the report done by Silver Star Auto because they said that they were their competitors. Also, Silver Star Auto does not convert ambulances. Mercedes-Benz doesn't do ambulance, so they don't represent Mercedes-Benz here for ambulances. Therefore, they agreed, 1, the supplier undertakes to send down its technical team to assemble and rectify any concern in respect of the 30 ambulances and officially hand over to the government of Ghana as a fair batch of 50 ambulances in accordance with the terms of the contract. So, assuming without admitting that this government genuinely had a problem with the ambulances, here are the people who manufacture the ambulances saying that we are prepared to come down with our team, pick the accessories we have shipped, and then install them and rectify any problems that you have so that we can continue with this relationship. This letter was received on 15th August 2018 by the minister at the Ministry of Health. And they have not, up to date, 4 clear years after it, gotten back to Big C. So on what basis can this government shout loss when, as of the time we were living, no loss had been incurred? If any loss has arisen, it is President Akufo-Addo and Kweku Ajimamenu who have caused it. The reason why they have done this is that they want the buses to rot so they can engage in the witch hunt and propaganda that they are engaging in now. So I beg you, it is extremely important that in these matters, we stick to the facts. Let me address the last issue, which has to do with the claim, the inexplicable claim by the hatchet man, Kwabena. We believe that is what he's doing. He claims that the loan that was taken to Parliament for approval, the Stanbic loan of 15.8 million euros, was a hoax. That indeed, in the flyers that he issued yesterday, that claim was made. Now, here is a letter dated 9th April 2013 from Stanbic to the Ministry of Finance, showing them a draft agreement that both parties will sign in order to give effect to the parliamentary approval. This loan was taken to Parliament. It was first considered by the Finance Committee of Parliament, on which members of the new Patriotic Party sat, including Kweku Kwatin, who was once a deputy finance minister and a member of the Finance Committee. They considered it, brought it to the plenary, and Parliament approved it. Parliamentary approvals are not mere formalities. They go through the proposals rigorously, and they consider all the provisions of the agreement. It is passed simply because the money didn't come, and we used alternative means of funding. The minister says that it was a hoax. So, for instance, the the Sino-Hydro loan that Dr. Bamiyan made noise about, that he had secured 2 billion. As I speak to you, less than 5% of that money had come. So, because the rest hasn't come, we should say that it is a hoax. The CNTCI loan, which Parliament approved for a sum of $1 billion that never came. Eventually, it was traced to some hairdressing salon. We should say that it's a hoax, simply because government decided that we want to use an alternative source of funding. So, in a nutshell, the claims being made by the Akufo-Addo government are blatantly false, and it is being done deliberately to prepare the grounds for the intimidation and harassment of NDC appointees. But as I've said,
to be
the
fair,
facts are on our side.
No part of this conversation is to prejudice the case.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
court.
I was in court yesterday.
Yes.
You see, the only reason why, absolutely. You see, the only reason why I have even bothered to respond to this is that the Attorney General, after going to court, put out misleading information about the government that I was part of. So that is not a court matter.
Yes, it's not a court matter.
It's not a court matter. So I have addressed it in order that people do not get the impression that merely because the Attorney General is saying it, then it is true.
So to be fair, this is what the Attorney General said,
that I'm responding
and this is also what you're responding
that's
to.
what I'm responding
and
to.
it's nothing to do with what's happening
I have
in
not
court.
passed a verdict on the court. I believe that the facts are on the side of the people who are accused, and their lawyers are more than capable of mounting a defense. I can express confidence that they will be made victorious and will be vindicated. The facts of the case will be taken to court.
Yeah.
The processes will be undertaken after the judge hears.
And all of those determinations will be made in court.
But as for what is in the public domain, it's not deniable. They have said, and it is a matter of public record, that we brought empty buses, which I have disproved. Even the pictures I've given you disprove it. The Attorney General has claimed that we took a hoax loan to Parliament, which I have disproved. The Attorney General has claimed that there was no authorization. He has said this publicly. And therefore, we reserve the right to publicly respond to this in order to ensure that the public does not get an unfair and false and misleading impression about us. But it has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the court case. We have utmost respect for the courts.
If the NDC were in power today, what would they have done about those ambulances?
But as of the last correspondence on this matter was on the 6th of January 2017.
The day before.
The day before. You know, when Honorable Secretary wrote the 14 December 2016 letter, the Ministry of Finance wrote to the Attorney General seeking legal opinion on whether or not they should establish the LC in the name of JAPA or Big C. The Attorney General wrote an opinion, and also whether or not they should establish an LC for all 170 ambulances, despite the provision in the contract that it should be done on the basis of 50 ambulances at a go. The Attorney General replied and said that as far as they are concerned, they should still pay through Big C, because that is an interpretation of the court's ruling in the matter between JAPA and Big C. And also, if, despite what the contract says, Big C shows that it is capable of shipping all 170 at a go, then the LC for all 170 should be established. And I should think that there's nothing wrong with it. It does not violate the agreement in any way, shape, or form. If we were not intent on bringing this matter to a logical conclusion, we will not engage in these correspondence. So if you were in power, we will not have gotten here. Maximum by the end of 2017, these ambulances will be in. And this country has been in dire need of ambulances. When President Mills was alive and he was leading this country, he brought in 127 ambulances. And then he started making these efforts to get us another 200. Unfortunately, by the time we left office, we are not finished. The logical expectation would be that this government would continue and see it to fruition because we desperately needed ambulances. Instead, they chose to engage in propaganda and bastardize the government.
To be fair, the health minister has stated before that the reason why they did not continue with engagement on this matter, and there are media publications to that effect, it was because Ioko was investigating it, and that government did not want to be engaged in...
First of all, Raymond, Ioko is not a court. There was no court order barring government from continuing. You see, this government has a siege mentality. They behave as if changes of governments through the ballot box are the same as coup d'etats. You recall the situation with roads. They came in and said that the cocoa roads it started. They were launching investigations. They spent 10 million Ghana cedis. No, is it $10 million? Investigating cocoa roads.
To probe the contracts related to that.
Only to find nothing. Get the roads that had started to deteriorate and then spend more money to get the roads repaired. So this business about Ioko investigating and so they could not do it is not true. In any event, Ioko's investigation started in 2017. In 2018, the minister accepted to sit with Big C and discuss the way forward. He agreed on a roadmap to ensure that the matter was resolved, and then he abandoned it. As far as we are concerned, the only reason why they have not continued is to deliberately allow the ambulances to deteriorate so they can use it for the banal propaganda that they engaged in. So we do not accept that Ioko is not a court. They cannot stop anybody from carrying out their responsibilities as enshrined under the law of Ghana.
Okay, now, but that's what actually they have said in this case.
It's not a tenable excuse.
I'm sure now that the case is in court,
sure,
the substantive issues will be dealt with in court.
Yes,
so basically, we can leave it off here, sure, and let the courts deal with the substantive issues.
We are more than happy to allow the courts to work. But you see...
And that clarification needs to be made.
Oh, actually,
you actually responded to was what was in court.
Raymond, the fact is this. The Attorney General is a public official. His actions and inactions are subject to public commentary. There's a difference between commenting on the details of a court case and pronouncing judgment or seeking to influence the way a court is operating. And criticism of the conduct or the abuse or the perceived abuse of prosecutorial powers by the Attorney General, the two are distinct.
Which is the letter you've issued, what do you call it? The MP has issued before.
He has issued. The Attorney General has responded.
In fact, the minority in Parliament yesterday made a comment on that.
The Attorney General himself has been keen to discuss what he believes is a side of the matter in the public domain. Whilst doing so, he has impugned the integrity of the government that I belong to. That government and its officials reserve the right to respond and clarify falsehoods that are put out. That is precisely what I have done. I have not attempted to prejudice the outcome, and I will not do it.
I guess we have to leave it here. Thank you so much. My guest today is a former Deputy Communications Minister. We're looking at the saga around the abandoned Mahama ambulance and the very conversations around that right from the beginning to this particular time. Surely we should be able to get into more of these conversations in the future, but thank you so much for joining us on Upfront today. And thank you so much, Honorable, for coming.